For most people, a time machine is a miracle. For these three, it's a living room. They spend their days drifting through the cosmos, smoking Basler and Pock from an atomic hookah, and treating the fabric of space-time as a playground with no lasting consequences. For Michelle, this isn't about the view. She is a college student who has traded her dorm room for alien drugs and a relentless, unrequited crush on a man who won't age. She is traveling across dimensions because she would rather be anywhere but Earth, chasing a connection that her human biology isn't built to sustain. Artix, her immortal companion, tries to explain the mismatch. He compares Joey to a whale driven by curiosity to walk on land. Without millions of years of evolution to develop legs, that creature is simply crushed under its own weight. Joey physically reacts to Michelle, but he possesses none of the emotional architecture required to love a human in a human timeframe. Michelle's response to this limitation is to try and edit the rules of the universe. She suggests a gamble: go back, save the gigantic from the iceberg, and see if the world and her place in it improves. It is an attempt to rewrite the facts of history because she cannot find a way to live with them. The crew agrees to the detour, heading back to 1912 to prevent a disaster. They are operating on the assumption that a saved ship leads to a better world, unaware that playing with the timeline's foundation often invites a violent correction. Saving the ship is a matter of simple mechanics. Artix slips onto the bridge unnoticed and cuts the engines, letting the vessel glide through the fog. He slows the ship just enough to ensure the iceberg passes by without a scratch. A century later, the results appear on the horizon. The gigantic is still afloat, now serving as the grand venue for a United Earth Peace Conference. In this version of the future, the ship is a monument to survival rather than a grave on the ocean floor. This chart explains the hidden cost of that survival. In the timeline we know, the gigantic sinks in 1912, and the nation of Samothea is falsely blamed for the tragedy. That accusation is a disaster, but it brings the conflict into the light where it can eventually be resolved. By saving the ship, Artix removes the accusation. Without a public incident to act as a pressure valve, Samothean resentment is left unaddressed for 100 years. The anger doesn't vanish, it festers in the dark. That resentment finally erupts in the ballroom. Samothean military forces storm the conference, turning the supposed symbol of peace into a slaughterhouse for the world's diplomats. History has a way of balancing its own scales. You can alter a mechanical event, like a shipwreck, but the underlying political and human tensions will eventually find an outlet, often resulting in far more casualties than the original disaster. As the timeline descends into chaos, Michelle turns her attention toward a more personal investigation. She asks Artix to use the machine to spy on her own life 10 years into this altered future. She finds herself living in a quiet suburban home with 2 children. It is a picturesque scene, but it confirms her fear. The man standing beside her is a different man entirely. Joey is nowhere to be found. Watching her future self live a full life without an immortal companion puts the whale metaphor into perspective. Michelle sees that she has a limited number of years, and she is currently spending them waiting for a man who exists on an entirely different evolutionary scale. The time machine didn't fix her life. It simply gave her a preview of her own mortality. She is forced to confront the fact that she is a finite being wasting her time in an infinite vacuum. Artix resets the timeline, ensuring the ship sinks. Because Michelle was in the time machine, she occupies both histories, carrying memories of the dancing and the slaughter simultaneously. The strain of these 2 realities forces a long-buried memory to the surface. Michelle remembers a previous mission with a clarity she didn't have before. She didn't escape the space station explosion. She was killed in it. She recalls her time in the afterlife and the moment God decided she needed to return to Earth. This creates a fundamental gap in perspective between her and the crew. Artix and Joey are wanderers who use eternity to kill time. Michelle is a resurrected person who has been given a specific second chance, and she realizes she cannot spend it drifting aimlessly through the stars. She chooses to leave the Timagor. She says goodbye to Joey, acknowledging that their lives are moving at different speeds, and asks Artix to return her to the university campus in Smithville. She walks back into her dorm room with a bag full of alien souvenirs and a new sense of urgency. When she picks up the ringing phone, she hears the voice of her father, a man whose death was a cornerstone of her old reality. The universe is too complex to be solved by a time machine. Meaning isn't found in the alternate realities we dream up to escape our pain, but in the decision to finally show up for the timeline we actually inhabit.